What's going on, YouTube? This is Sports Gaming 1, and it's time to look at some more rosters for NCAA Football 19, which, of course, is NCAA Football 14, but these are the 2018 rosters that we are working on as we get ready to do this virtual college football season this spring, starting this spring, and we'll go through this summer. And again, we're trying to get all these rosters done, and now we're going to look at the quarterbacks in the ACC. So I'm going to show you the ratings for every starting quarterback, projected starting quarterback in the ACC. And again, you have to remember the speed. Guys that are dual threat quarterbacks are going to be rated higher. That does not mean that they're better passers. It's just how the game rates these players because it takes into account their throwing accuracy, throw power, and then their running ability, their ability to break tackles, their speed, juke move, all that stuff. And there's a formula that the game uses that I use to determine I used originally to determine how I would do these ratings and get kind of a scale for everything. So let's go ahead and get right to it. I'm going to show you all of the starting quarterbacks in the ACC and also just a few of the backups. All right, we get started here with Boston College. You see Anthony Brown in 80 overall and Darius Wade in 85. And this was, we saw this with Purdue as well. The backup actually had a better rating, and Darius Wade came in and played pretty well in that bowl game last season. But they had Anthony Brown as the starter, so for now we're going to keep him on the depth chart as the starting quarterback for Boston College. Let's go now to our next player, our next team. That's going to be Clemson. Kelly Bryant, actually a 91 overall. I know a lot of people were saying he can't throw the football and all this stuff, but his stats are not bad. He has pretty good numbers throwing the football, and he has really good numbers running the football. So he does come out as a 91 overall, one of the better quarterbacks, and that's very interesting. Let's go now. Who will be next? Duke. Daniel Jones, an 87 overall. His numbers are actually better his freshman season, if I'm not mistaken. So what I did is I kind of averaged out both seasons. I didn't just go off of last season because, if he did it his freshman year, obviously he has the potential to do it again. So that's kind of how he got to be an 87. I think if it just went off of last year's stats, he would have been a little lower, maybe like an 84 or something like that. Who would be next? Florida State. And yes, we did Francois and Blackman. I did both of them. Francois came out to be an 88. And again, I used his numbers from his freshman season because he didn't really play. He only played, a little over a half last season. So I didn't use those numbers at all. And you see James Blackman in 82 overall. Pretty good numbers last year. He can improve in some areas, but Francois does have more speed, a little bit better running ability. So that kind of gives him a little bit more of a boost here. And a kid that I think could be, come out with his numbers next year, I think he could be higher than an 88. But as of now, we're not going to do anything like that. We're just going to base this off of what these guys have done in the past. Georgia Tech, Taquan Marshall, he's an 80 overall, but this really, it doesn't matter. He's a triple option quarterback. So you see agility, acceleration, that's what's really high for him because he's going to be running the football a lot. And his passing numbers are actually pretty good, I think, if I'm not mistaken on that. It's been a while since I did some of these quarterbacks, so hopefully I'm not giving you any bad information. Let's go to Louisville. You see Jawan Pass at 87 overall. A lot of people think he's going to be, the next Lamar Jackson for them. I don't think quite as good of a runner. He's not going to be quite as fast and elusive. Maybe he is. I don't know. You see his 40 time came out to be an 80 speed. That's pretty impressive. But we'll have to see what he does. And again, 87 overall. That's one of the better ratings for a player that has not been a full-time starter. Almost wanted to stop at Maryland. It still feels like they should be in the ACC to me. Miami is going to be next. Rozier, an 83 overall. A lot of people think this guy right here, N'Kosi Perry, is going to be the starter next season. But, again, I have to have some stats to bump those ratings up. And we may make some judgments based off of the spring. If Perry comes in there and lights it up and looks like a really good quarterback and he wins the starting job, what I will do is I will at least bump him up over 83, because if he's the starter, he's obviously better. So I will, raise his ratings up to at least an 84. Malik Rozier, I know he did horrible at the end of the year, but if you take the whole year into account, he was pretty good. And again, he came out as an 83. That's not bad at all. Let's see, who would be next? NC State. How about Ryan Finley, a 90 overall? That's going to be one of the better ratings, and he had good numbers last season. Actually, was some people thought there was a chance he might come out and go to the NFL early. He did not do that, and I think he's poised to have a really good season next year at NC State. North Carolina. How about Chaz Surratt, 87? I wouldn't have thought that, but he's got really good numbers running the football. And again, the running quarterbacks are going to be rated higher on the game. That's just the way it works. The Operation Sports team, the way they do their rosters, they get an overall rating, and then they go from there. So a dual threat quarterback for them, they're going to lower their passing ratings down so that they get them where they want them in the overall. I don't do that. I take their passing numbers for what they are, and then I, add in all the rushing numbers and all that. So that's why, for me, the running quarterbacks are always going to come out higher with an overall rating, and I think that's the way it should be, because that doesn't mean they're better passers, but if you add in the element of running the football, then yeah, I think that player should have the higher overall, and so that's the way it worked for me. Notre Dame is not in the ACC technically, but I'll go ahead and show them to you. Brandon Wimbush, 81. Ian Book, 81. How about that? Both 81, and that's going to be a really interesting quarterback battle there. You can see on the game here, based off their numbers, it is very, very close. Who would be next? Who's next? Pittsburgh. How about Kenny Pickett, 85 overall? Took over late in the season last year and did a pretty good job. So that's a really high rating for a sophomore that didn't even play a lot last season. We'll see if he can live up to it in real life. Who is next? I think we're about done in the ACC. Syracuse. Eric Dungy, 87. Very good overall. He was up and down last season. This Syracuse team, at one time when they beat Clemson, they almost beat Miami. There's another team they almost beat. They looked like a really good team. Then they kind of fell apart down the stretch. But I do think Eric Dungy is set to have a pretty big senior season. And let's see, is there anybody else? Let's see, we got Wake Forest still. Trying to go through this slowly to make sure I don't miss anybody. Virginia, and Virginia Tech. Virginia, there was nobody here. There was nobody with, I think, really any significant playing time. I don't know if Lindell Stone had enough playing time for me to do a rating on him or not. So you can probably just ignore this one. Virginia Tech, Josh Jackson, 87 overall. Again, a dual threat guy, so his rating is going to be higher, even though his passing numbers maybe aren't that great. But yeah, 87. I think he is poised for a big season next year in his sophomore year. Watch for Virginia Tech. They could be sneaky good next season. And then we go to Wake Forest. Kendall Hinton, an 87 overall. Wasn't really the full-time starter last year, but he does have enough playing time for me to give him a rating based off of his stats. Again, another dual threat guy. Came out 87. Can really run the football, and he could be pretty good for Wake Forest next year. That's a team on the rise as well. And then that is going to be it. So who was our highest overall rated quarterback in the ACC? Maybe Kelly Bryant at 91. I'm trying to think. Francois was 88. So they didn't have a guy really rated up near 95 or anything like that in the ACC. I'm going to go back through it just to make sure I'm not missing somebody. And I believe he was the highest rated quarterback. So the ACC doesn't really have any big time stars. Well, they lose Lamar Jackson from last season. And yeah, that's going to be your highest overall rating right there. Kelly Bryant at 91. But there are a lot of good quarterbacks in the ACC for next season. And it's going to be fun to play with them on the game. and see how it all plays out. But there you go. That's the ACC quarterbacks. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the Sports Gaming 1 YouTube channel.